video about awesome cakes. Today we're going to make a Minecraft cake, and we're going to make a Minecraft block like this one, just a bit bigger obviously. I'm going to show you the ingredients. We've got some butter, some eggs, ground hazelnut. I have some sugar here, some flour, some green food colouring and some icing. Now, the idea of this cake is that we only cover the cake on top with the icing to make the green grass. Therefore, I'm making a chocolate and nut cake. As you can see, I've already chopped up some chocolate, but we'll get back to that later on. Okay, so first of all, we're obviously having to make the cake. I'm going to use my Kenwood today, but you can just easily do this in a bowl with a whisk. The first thing to do is to combine the butter and the sugar. Once this is done, we're going to gradually add the eggs. Sift the flour into it and give it another mix. Now, I find it easiest to change into the dough attachment for my Kenwood from now on. If you have one, change into that, and then we can mix in the hazelnut and the chocolate. Now, since I couldn't find a proper square tin that would be tall enough to make a cube, I decided to use two round, very high tins. And I'm just going to make two halves, and then we'll just have to cut them into shape. As you can see, I've lined my tin with greaseproof paper, and I've greased the sides. Divide the batter equally between the two tins, and then we can stick it in the oven. Right, once the cakes are done, we need to get them out of the cake tin and let them cool down. Now, while we're waiting for the cake to cool down, we can make our template to correctly cut the cake in a square, and we will use that later on for the icing as well. First of all, take a bit of greaseproof paper and cut out a bit that is exactly the same diameter as the cake. Now, the easiest way of doing this is to put your greaseproof paper on top of the cake and then carefully outlining the circle. Now we're going to fold the circle in half and then into quarters to determine the center. Okay, now, as we see here, I formed a little cross over my circle, and all I need to do now is get a ruler and connect these lines. Okay, once you cut it all up, this is where you're going to get, and this is basically the biggest square we can get out of these cakes. Put them on a chopping board and then cut into size. Now, I find it easier to have the flat side up so that you can be really sure that you can carefully cut along the sides of the square. Now put the cake away for a minute, and we're going to start colouring the icing. Now, whenever you work with icing, you have to make sure that your surface is absolutely spotless. Now, unfortunately, that isn't the case with me, and I just like to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So I usually put some greaseproof paper down, and that will do the trick. Okay, same thing as last week. Icing, food colouring, net it. Okay, once it's grassy enough, wrap it in cling film and stick it in the freezer for a couple of minutes. Now, to assemble the cake, all we need to do is spread some chocolate spread in the middle. And this is first and foremost to keep the cake together. If you find that your cake isn't high enough to be a cube, you can take the cut-offs from the cake that we did before and then just basically cut them into more or less rectangles and just assort them in the middle. So the very first thing I'm going to do now is spread some chocolate spread. And now all I've done is taken 4 of these bits, cut them in half, and I'm going to stack them on the layer. You can add a second layer if you want to. Okay, finally spread the last layer of chocolate and then put the cake on top. Now, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to take the cake for the top layer, and the bottom of my cake is now going to be my top, because that's going to be the most level square. So, the last step for today is getting our icing. First of all, roll out the icing. Now, you want to make sure that you roll out the icing in pretty much a square, and this will make it a lot easier for us to work with. Now, this is where our little square comes in handy again, because we can put it down and we know how big the cake is. Okay, once you're satisfied enough with the size of the icing, we can start cutting out the little pixel shapes. But before we can do that, we need to cut out a little triangle where the icing meets the corner of the square. That way, when we put the icing over the cake, it'll join nicely in the middle. Just follow the line of the square and then cut out a little bit, like this. If you're finding it difficult to cut through the icing with your knife, put some icing sugar on the blade. Okay, so putting the icing on the cake now is by far the most difficult thing you will have to do today. You will have to be very gentle and very patient. And this is how to make your very own Minecraft cube cake.